Hey guys, this is the tutorial for Strudel part 2. So we can start with defining the CPM. As I said, each cycle is like each bar in the music. So in this instance, we can define it as 128 divided by 4. So we can define a harmony here, which is named prog as C4, E4, G4. Then the next bar is A3, C4, E4, and then F3, A3, C4, and then G3, B3, D4. So the brackets here defines that these elements that each are in the bracket in the each single bracket plays together. So these three plays together, and the next bracket, these three plays together, and so on. And note that we should have a space between the brackets to make it more clear. And then we can define the roots. So if we want to define multiple elements using the same roots, we can have a global roots variable or constant as like C2, A1, F1, G1. Then we can define our core layers. So we can use kick, snare, and hats. So the S notation is what it means is that is going to use the like built-in samples in this strudel. So like the name for kick is BD in the sample. So we want BD on each of the 4 bits with a gain at roughly 1, which is like 0.90. And then we want to have a snare that hits on the steps of 2 and 4. So it's like silence. This is silence. And snare, which is SD in the samples notations, and another silence and another SD with a lower gain, which is like 0.75. And then we can have our hats, which are hi-hats, which is defined at HH. So this notation here, which, as I said, um, which means that it stacks all of them in one. So it's like at first it hits the 8 notes on the hi-hats, and then it hits on the 16th notes. So each of these treats as one bar. And then we want a low gain on it, like 0.35. And then we can have a pad on it. So the thing that we define the prog and roots there. So like for easiness later when defining the different elements. So we use the prog notes in the constant prog here for the pad. And so it's easier. And then we want to have a sound of a sine wave on it and a low pass filter at 1200 frequency. And we have a lot of release on that because it's a pad like 1.2 and a little gain on that. So it's like 0.22. And then we can have the bass that plays on the roots notes, which we define here, which is C2, A1, F1, G1, with the sound of a sawtooth and a low pass filter at 700 frequency and just a little release that makes it a punchy sound. So like a quarter. And then we have a gain of 0.45. So after defining all of our constants, we can have each live loop for each element. So you just hit play and all of them just play. Or you can have each elements defined by constants, and after that, you can use arrange to put that at whatever you want, whatever order you want. So we just defined all of this, and we can have a fill to just like add more vibe to it. So we can have a snare that hits on the eighth notes and with a low gain of 0.20, and we can use a mask on it. So the mask gives you more control on it. That is like zero means mute and one means play. So which means that in the cycle, at bar one is muted, bar two muted, bar three muted, and at the bar four it plays. So after defining all of this, we can have our song with the arrange. So note that when you want to use multiple arranges or whatever, just multiple elements in your music, and you want to put that all together, we use stack here. So it's like stack, open parenthesis, and then we have the end parenthesis. So inside that, we can have arrange, again, open parenthesis and close parenthesis. And as we're using multiple arranges, it should have like commas in between all of them. And you see in the last one, it doesn't have a comma after that. Same as inside each arranges. So it's like comma, comma, and no comma for the last one. So you can arrange all of that in just one arrange, or you can use arranges for each of the elements. So what we did here is like we use arrange first on the kick, that we want the kick present at all elements, but just quieter in the outro. So we lowered the gain by, so as we set it to 0.75. But so this notation means that at first four bars, it's going to be played as kick, and next eight bars kick, next four bars like another kick. So this defines the number of bars in the length, and then the element, we're going to arrange that to those bars. So as I said, for this arrangement, we want to have an intro of four bars and then eight bars drop and four bars outro. So, um, for example, after that, we want to arrange the snare. So we want the snare only in the drop. So for the first four bars, it's silence, which means the rest in notes. And in the outro is also silence. Just the snare is present at the eight bars of the drop. And then we can have the hats. So it's present all over the song, but it's fully present at the eight bars of drop, but with a lower gain in the intro, with a gain of 0.30 and even lower gain of 0.20 in the outro. And the notation is hi-hats of HH. So then we can have the arrangement for the bass that, like the snare, just it's present at the drop. So it's like silence at first four bars and the last four bars, and just present at the eight bars of the drop. And then for the pad, we can have the arrangement of fully present, but quieter in the intro and outro, with a gain of 0.18 and 0.15 respectively. And then we can have a gain of 0.22 on the eight bars of the drop. And also, we're going to filter out a lot in the intro and outro, but just a slightly filtering when it is in the drop. And then we arranged the fill as well to only present at the eight bars of the drop. And then we stack all of them, as I said, and let's just play that to see how it's going to look like. Yeah, it's finished for the cycle. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. See you in the next parts.